Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing a history book review of the Hittites by Oliver Gurney. And this is a Folio Society edition of that work, and it's part of a 4-volume set that includes the Babylonians, the Persians, and the Egyptians by a couple different authors. But anyways, we're going to be going over the Hittites, and in the near future, I'm going to be writing some history articles on the Hittites for a couple Facebook groups, if you guys are interested in that. And if you guys don't know, the Hittites were an ancient Near Eastern Bronze Age people that ruled the majority of what is now Turkey in the 2nd millennium BC, especially the second half of that millennium. Alright, so let's start the review. Originally, this book, I think, was written in the 50s, I believe, but it's been updated several times and revised, and the bibliography includes books from at least the late 90s, so it's definitely been updated several times, so the information is still definitely relevant. There were a couple problems, namely, my biggest problem actually is kind of a weird one, but it's basically the book sort of just like abruptly ends. There's really no sort of wrap-up or conclusion or an epilogue of sorts. There is an epilogue, but it's like 2 paragraphs long. Essentially, you read a chapter on Hittite artwork, both in like sculpture and hieroglyphics and all that stuff, and then the book is just like over. There's no inclination that it's going to be over or anything like that, but there's, like I said, there's like a 2-paragraph epilogue. But I just think I think the book such as this would definitely do well to sort of synthesize all the information together into like a sort of conclusionary remark about the Hittites, and even just a short couple page chapter maybe. But yeah, I felt that was a little bit lacking. And secondly, the way the book is structured in general is fine, where he goes over more of the traditional political narrative history stuff, and then goes into subsequent chapters on more specific things about the Hittites, basically. The only problem is the last 3 chapters were kind of a little bit more specialized, I guess. It was like Hittite literature, Hittite art, and like Hittite religion and mythology or something like that. I think something like that. And so, like I said, it was just kind of 3 really very specific abrupt chapters, and then it just sort of ends, and they don't really tie together that much. I guess it was just kind of a weird ending, to be honest, the last probably a third of the book or so. However, everything else about the book is pretty great. There's a huge bibliography section. Unfortunately, a lot of it's in German, so I can't read it, but you know, that's just how it is sometimes with certain historical eras. But it's the Folio Society edition, so it's obviously just like a really nice, high quality book. Like the cover's like really cool, and the paper's like high quality and all that stuff. This edition has lots of, I'd probably say maybe 2 dozen plates. Probably more than that. But anyways, it's got lots of high quality photographs of plates from basically Anatolia about the Hittites. Anatolia is basically the peninsula where Turkey is today, if you guys don't know. But anyways, like I said, lots of cool plates. The book itself is really high quality, like usual for Folio Society books. So if you guys are interested in Folio Society, I'd definitely try and get some. They're really cool. But anyways, back to the Hittites. He also has some footnotes in the narrative text itself, and he puts them at the bottom of the page, which is like my favorite way of doing footnotes. He doesn't have too many, and most of them are sort of more just explanations of like words or translations of words, things like of that nature. But it's definitely helpful in reading some of the passages, especially reading the original Hittite passages that they've translated from Hittite script. His historical narrative of the people of Hatti, or the Hittites, covers from their first mention in about somewhere around 2000 BC, like I said, about somewhere around there, all the way through the Neo-Hittite kingdoms, which would have been after the Bronze Age collapse, so in, say, the 7, 8, 900s BC. And that's where you get the biblical references to the Hittites in the Old Testament. It's not referring to the Hittite Empire, per se, of the Bronze Age, because that would be before that context, but the Neo-Hittites. But anyways, he covers pretty much the entire spectrum of Hittite history, which is really cool. And I mean, there's nothing super special about it, I guess, but it's definitely not lacking anything either. Just like a nice, brief, solid overview. He also has a pretty good chapter on Hittite state and society, which covers basically, how the government sort of functioned, but then also all the different sort of occupations people might possibly be in Hittite society and what made them different from other Bronze Age cultures at the time. However, my favorite chapter, I think the highlight of this book, was actually his coverage of Hittite law, which I thought it was really well written, very concise, very clear, and conveyed a lot of information. And there's just a quote that I found really striking from the Hittites. I've read it before, but this one definitely brought it up again. Let's see. Okay, and this is basically sort of the general principle that Hittite justice tried to acquire, which distinguished them quite a bit actually from other Bronze Age peoples. But here's the quote. And this is the king basically giving commands to a judicial officer that would sort of basically be the judge as he traveled around from town to town, that sort of area or sort of situation, I guess you'd say. But so here is the king's command to his officers: "And to whatever city you return, summon forth all the people of the city. Whoever has a suit, decide it for him and satisfy him. If it's the slave of a man or the maidservant of a man, or a bereaved woman has a suit, decide it for them and satisfy them. Do not make the better case the worse, or the worse case the better. Do what is just." So, in Hittite society, there is slavery, though there, as all Bronze Age societies had, but they try to word it more in things such as servitude. But in general, it does seem that Hittite culture definitely placed law and order a little bit higher up on the important scale, I guess, of society than some of the other cultures. But I thought that was just really cool. So yeah, overall, I thought that chapter was probably the highlight of the book. He goes through different the law codes that we have and brings up different points about it. Obviously, if you did every single law, it would be kind of tedious. So he just sort of brought up, the importance and the ones that distinguish them a little bit from other cultures. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the Hittites by Oliver Gurney. The Folio Society edition definitely just made it a little bit more special. But yeah, I think I'm going to give The Hittites by Gurney a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Not that, like I said, the ending was kind of abrupt, and some of the later chapters on really specific topics, like I said, Hittite literature or Hittite language, just really aren't going to be that useful to anyone who's not already a Hittite scholar, basically, which in that case they probably really wouldn't be reading the book anyways. But yeah, it was a little bit too specific, and just those chapters were a little bit drier, I think. But yeah, overall, I'm going to give The Hittites 4 out of 5 stars, and always remember, read victoriously.